Good morning, Rebbe. Happy belated birthday. And let's go over to the Sifra Tzniuta and let's see what we could do with it. So we were coming around the corner here. Just a little, let me see. I just wasn't quite ready. Let's see. All right, let's see where maybe we could just read across the top one time to get back into it. So he says over here, Is Yached Yud Beluchudoi. So we had Is Yachad. So he says Yud Beluchudoi. So we had an understanding that Yud becomes separated. Basar came Salik Bedargo, and then it starts going up and up. The Elov is Hashvacha V'Nukva. B'Hishchashcha Nukva. The Nukva becomes dark. B'His Nehiras Ima, and then Ima lights her up, and Mispatcha B'Sa'aroi. And then she opens up, now with her gates, in her gates, something like that. It's see exactly how this works. So that puts us on number Kaf back here. So let's go up to the black letters. Mispatcha B'Sa'aroi. Opens up, Miss Patra opens up for her the gates. So exactly what we mean here. Ba'az na'asis ima bebechinas kli lebal b'niftachim shari yisoda. So now at this point he says that when Ima starts shining into, that's what I think he means, so shining into the nukva, he said then open up her gates, that is I guess Ima. I'm not sure exactly where this is, where Ima is shining at this time. Niftachim sh'ari yisoda, the yisod of the nukva, l'kabel tipas holeda, in order to be able to receive the tipa holeda. Now, excuse me, but I think he's not talking about the nukva. He's talking about ima. V'hu sod chamishim shari bina haniftachim b'yisod ima. So this is the concept. This is this opening up. How does it happen? I don't know. Let's go down below. There's just a little bit here, but then there's some more arichos coming up. So he says, Rei b'pirish, so now we're on number Kaf. V'hu sod chamishim shari bina. Rei b'pirish ha-talmid, he says, what does that mean? And it opens up the gates. That is, her 50 gates open up. Shall ima ad kan v'reod lahalon, and we're going to get into it more coming up now. So the gates of Ima open up and make it possible for her to receive this tipa that we've been talking about. So reading after number, read after number Kuf, up at the top of the page. After the gates are open now, is where he's at. Let me see. After the gates are open, the Kabbalah became Oros Abba, in order to be able to receive the lights of Abba. So we have a number Kaf Aleph down below, and we're going to read on that. He says, look over in the Eitz Chaim, he said, V'zel Lashoneh, to quote, V'nei Edul Halamed Beis Nesivos, that we're talking here about these 32 paths. Excuse me. Now the 32 paths of Chochmah, Heim Zecharim, and they come from Chochmah, Abba. But Noisnim Be'ima, and then these 32 paths go into Ima Toch, the Mansepach, into her Mansepach. Now, we had Mansepach recently before again. I get a little mixed up exactly what the Mansepach is, but here's going to come. He says, Shehem Nun Sha'arim, so Shabbat. So that is to say that they that was the word v'noisnim be'ima toch man. This mansepach turns into her 50 gates. Nun sharim Shabbat ki kol achas min hey osius mansepach kulula miyud hare nun. So there's an answer as to where the nun came from. The nun came from the mansepach, which is inside of the nook. Now, I've been saying that Mansepach represented sweetened dinim, and I'm getting it confused with Ryo, because Ryo apparently is the formula for making a kli. I think that's what it is. the Kli and the Nukva, and I forgot what he told us about the Manzabach. So, V'lechein Nikra Sha'arim. So therefore they're called gates. Why? Yan Heim Pesochim Besuchos, because they are doors that are open. The Nikavim shall ima and the shall nima hanikra nekeva. So now this part I'm not sure I could translate it. He says so their gates are open. The Nikavim really means holes. I don't know, the openings. I don't know. Shall ima hanikra nekeva, which are called nekeva. Ki hanekeva sharecha besuchos lekabel besochel nesinas hachma. So they're open up. So what am I missing here with this translation of the word nekavim? So she has some kind of a slot, maybe, that the 32 nesivas hachma can pour into ad kan. Now maybe I got that right, maybe I didn't. V'chein bir kan bezoyer chai. Also we have this Zelda Shona v'chatzas alayla. Az mizdavkim abba ve'ima b'chadash besod bir rishona. La sosa kli v'is nehiras ima, and then ima becomes illuminated. So once again he says from the Bia Rishona, but first of all he says that this takes place at midnight. Now the midnight, I'm assuming from what we learned elsewhere, is that this is a yichud between, I think it's between Yaakov and Leah. Oz mizdavgim abba ve'ima, that makes a yichud there at that time, though we're not talking about Yaakov and Leah, which would be Zachar v'Nuk. We're talking about abba ve'ima takes place anew. Besod bia rishona, and it's like a first time that there's going to be if between abba and ima. La sosa, in order to make her a kli bis nehira ima, and it causes her to light up. A mispatcha b'salroi. And this also leads to the opening of her gates. Now, when she becomes a kli, na'asin chamishim sha'arim, then are made these 50 gates. Shalah are her 50 gates. He says rachavim upesuchim. So they're, I think that's rachavim. Yeah, rachavim. They're broad. Upesuchim and opened up. Pesach patuach. It's the old open door kind of concept. Whatever. So her gates open up. See, this is my question. Thinking, reading this, is he talking about the gates at the top that open up in order to be able to receive from Abba? Or is he talking about the gates down below which are going to give birth? So which is it? But here he says that it's actually the Mansipach is coming into her, and it opens up 50 gates. And then the Lamed Beitz comes into that. He said, Ki nekeva she'arecha pesuchim l'kabel besocha l'lamed beit nesivas hachachma b'vor beitz chaim. And that's apparently a shartanta. I don't recall seeing that, but anyway, v'zehu umispatcha b'saroi, that it becomes an opening, the opening process of her gates, Adkan. Now, where did the Chatzis Alayla come in there? Hu lefi darko sham. This is what the Rav had been saying over there. Akla inyanenu, but in regards to what we're talking about, mevor be'etz chaim, it says over there now, the Eirech b'bia rishona, that really the focus here is on the first bia, the Abba v'Ima v'bris ha'olam canal. Now that whole phrase there. First of all, he went out the way. He started to make a disclaimer. Let's go back to the word ad inyanenu, also according to what our discussion. What is our discussion? Mavur be'etz chaim, it says over there, now, the Eirech b'bia rishon, that it's talking about this first yichud. That's the one that takes place at midnight. The Abba v'Ima b'brias ha'olam, and then he adds in the brias ha'olam, which I'm not sure what to do with that, but that's what he said. He says that the creation began, let's say, so to speak, at midnight, with the Abba bringing the Mansipach into Ima. Is that what it is? He's got the Mansipach, and he opens up her 50. That causes the opening of 50 gates. The Laman Beis Nefsivos come in, and either that causes the 50 gates, or the 50 gates were there before. I'm not sure. Let's read a little bit more. So after the word, so this yichud, the kabel became oris abba, v'niftachim lahashpia lamata besod chamishim shari bina, and then the kavana here, they open up in order to pour out besod chamishim shari bina in the secret of these 50 gates of bina. So which way is pouring? That's what I said before. Rei Bishara Pesukim, so look at this, and he wants to focus on the idea that this is making her into a kli. V'zel l'shonaki kol chesed kalu ma'eser. So now he says every chesed has here he's talking about mansapach or denim. So he says ki kol, and who is reading here? Because anyway, ki kol chesed kalu ma'eser. Every chesed has 5 within it. Harei chamishin, that makes 50. Ve'edachem chamishi sharim bina sheyotzim min ashar min hashar. That all of these, now he's coming down to the yesod of ima, these chamishim shari bina that come out from the gate that is open, that actually opens up the yesod, that is the yesod of ima. So now we're back in the yesod of ima, ad kan. So he said, Re gam belikuti Torah, he says over there. He said, "V'zel l'shon ki chamisha chasadim kol echad kol ha'asara heim chamishi shari bina are in fact the 50 gates of bina. Shehem yordan mishari bina, because these 50 gates, they come down me shari bina, from the sharim of bina, shehu hayisod the ima sheniftach, which is so he says the yisod is not just a yisod, it's got 50 gates, but this concept of gates is a little vague exactly where it came from. So he says sheniftach, but we understand that it has to do with the mansapach, and it has to do with the lamed beis nesivos, v'yotzim chamisha chasadim, and then come out from this 50 chasadim ad kan. So he said v'hine af shenizgar kan hey chasadim, even though we're mentioning the 5 chasadim. So he kach hu gam bechinas gevura, but at the same time it's behei gevuros, so it's also 5 gevuros. Look at the Issa Be'etz Chaim. We have that over in the Eitz Chaim. He said, this is what it says over there. He says, he ne chamishim sh'arin shebebina heim he gevuros shebal kol echad kol ma'asara. So now we have one Manda Omer saying that it's chasadim, but at the same time it's gevuros. Gam yesh chamishim sh'arim mehei chasadim. So you have that too. Called echad kol ma'asara. Once again, hey mechamishim ad kan. So there's the 50s have to do with zachar, there's some male and female aspect of chasadim and gevuros. V'hine kol hashefa chazecha nistam b'sel zer anpin. So all of it winds up stopping in zer anpin. It flows into zer anpin. Kamosh v'vur behemshech. We're going to see that mode. B'so umakasya pischa. So there was something way back where we talked about the closing. So he says, mispatcha. Okay, let me get a drink here. We're going to go to the back of the book and try to pick up a little bit here to get started. And there's where we're at right now. So we went to the back. I got the wrong one. Okay, wait a minute. I'm here. I just have to answer the phone. Okay, I got confused there. Okay, so let's go over to, if you want, we could read across the top, Is Yachad Yud B'Lechodoi. So that's the subject that we're going to right now. He says, number Aleph, it says, B'Bia Rishona D'Abba V'Ima B'Brias Ha'olam. Once again, he calls this with the creation of the world. I'm not really sure what the implication of this is versus anything else. This, in other words, he says at the very beginning of the physicality, this is what happens. He says, "Is Yachid Yud B'Lechodoi." So we had said previously that they become separated. Salik B'Divrei B'Dargo La'ela. We had that idea also. Goes up and up. Is chashka nukva. When that happens, the nukva becomes totally dark. V'nisnehiras ima. Then ima shines into her, mispatka b'saroy, and then opens up her gates. So let's see what we can in the little bit of time we have left. Bia Rishona da Abba Ve'iba B'Riyas Olam. Now that whole concept, that this is the very beginning of the Yichud that's going to lead to us. He's a klaus of beer, the general idea here, beer of Meshula Defi Arizal. Al Hemshech Sifra Ditzniut, as we go on, Al Sod HaPerik, Ad Sod HaPerik, Sofa Perik, excuse me. He says, Nisyasid Al Pi Divir Arizal, this all is coming according to the words of the Ri. Bekama Makomas, and he really spoke about this in many different places. Shabir the Ire Khan Babir Rishona the Abba Ve'imba Babriyas Olam, that here it's talking about the very first Yichud that takes place between Abba Ve'ima at the Bria of the Olam. Now, again, is this in this year 0, before the 5,783 we're at right now? When does he mean at the time of the Brias Olam? He says, V'oz nasan Abba be'ima bechinas rucha. He puts in her rucha. Now, I saw, incidentally, in another place, that the word ruach is actually the gematria of the milui of Elokim. So number 218. So that has something to do with, limiting down in some way, like doing as Elokim says Gevurah. So he puts a rucha inside of her. Then she becomes a kli, and she's able to receive the tipa that ultimately is going to give birth to Zohar V'Nog. Then this aspect of the rucha really continues on and goes into Zeranpin. So then that's it. Now it does rhyme a little bit with the idea that I saw in the Rashash, that the word ruach really comes from the milui of Elokim, because what you're doing is you're making it possible for it to get more physical. Let's see, we have just this little number, Aleph Zivug the Kli V'Rucha. So he just wants to say, what is this called? This is Zivug of Kli V'Rucha. Now, let's take one more. We have like 3 minutes. Behinda Rizal Bir Rak Lashon Hemshech HaMaimer Asa Miftacha the Kolil Shis. So the only thing is to explain now what the Ari talks about is when this key comes. And the key, which has 6 notches in it, let's say, Ad Sofa Perik, until the end, the Osa B'Zer Anpin, that there, he's talking about Zer Anpin, Amakabel as Shefach Rucha, and now who ultimately is, let's say he's a recipient of the same Rucha. Min Ima Ein Shom. Akma Mela, Muvan the Alpi Zeret Sark the Farish Divir Sifra Tzniusach Shadafond of Is Nehira Ima, that we have to spend some time and talk about what it means that Ima becomes illuminated with the light of the 32. He says the Ira Besod Hashpas Hachu Rucha La'ima, that really there what you're talking about, the lighting up, it's the spread of the flow down, the Hachu Rucha into Ima, and as that Ruach lights her up. Now you can understand this. Sheyesh devayir gam shar lashonos hasifra t'niyutza, but we have to go through all the rest of the languages over here. So I guess he wants to say that the Ari really just wants to talk about that rucha. He says hasifra t'niyutza shalafenenu the kol ayre bebriyas olam, that this is really talking about the very beginning of the creation of the world. Of the inyan bia rishona the abba ve'ima v'zer anpit the nukve. Thank you, Rebbe. That's it for today. Call to.